I've worked as a janitor at the Monroe County Courthouse for 20 years, starting at 20 and now I'm 40. I dropped out of high school at 16 with no degree and no real skills anyone would value. To everyone in this building, I've always just been the janitor who mops floors and empties trash. But what no one knew is that for 20 years, I had been listening to every single trial. Every word, every argument, every ruling, I memorized them all without anyone noticing. Family law, contract law, the state constitution, I knew them better than most lawyers here. Hidden in the janitor's closet on the 3rd floor was my real secret, an encrypted hard drive containing everything this courthouse had ever tried to hide. Discarded case drafts, voided NDAs, recordings of backroom deals between attorneys. In a place where I was invisible, I had quietly become the one who knew everything. The year I turned 40, I stopped being just a janitor. I became a law student at night, preparing for the moment no one saw coming. Have you ever been underestimated because of your job? Ever been stepped on only to rise up and prove everyone wrong? It was an early Tuesday morning in October when everything finally changed. The autumn wind rattled the leaves outside as I scrubbed a stain near courtroom 3B. Inside, the most high-profile divorce case in the county was unfolding Bogart v. Hawkins. Marion Bogart, a self-made billionaire, was fighting her ex-husband in court. Christian Hawkins, a man who contributed nothing, demanded half her empire, despite a prenuptial agreement guaranteeing him only $5 million. His lawyer, Gerald Vance, built a web of lies to invalidate that agreement. Claims of coercion, hidden assets, and fabricated evidence filled the courtroom. Marion's attorney, Adam Hart, was one of the best litigators in the state. For 3 days, he had dominated the courtroom with confidence and precision, but that morning, something was very wrong. Judge Goodwin's voice thundered from inside the courtroom. "Mr. Hart, what exactly are you trying to say?" Adam's voice came back strained and shaken. "Your Honor, I can no longer represent my client in this matter." The courtroom fell completely silent in an instant. "I am withdrawing from this case effective immediately due to a conflict of interest." Gasps spread through the room as the judge tried to stop him. But Adam turned and walked out without looking back. The door slammed open and he stormed past me, furious and shaken. I gripped my mop tighter as everything clicked into place in my head. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a setup. 3 days earlier, I had found a flash drive in his office trash. And it was a full recording of his calls with Gerald Vance, a $2 million bribe to walk out mid-trial. Plans to forge documents and bribe witnesses to lie in court. This was their final move to destroy Marion completely. I retreated into the janitor's closet, my mind racing through possibilities. My phone buzzed with a message from Professor Jonathan Olson. "Lunch today?" I called him immediately instead. "Professor, something big just happened in the Bogart case." I explained everything, the withdrawal, the bribe, the evidence I had. He went silent for a moment, then spoke carefully. "What are you planning to do?" The judge gave her until 1 p.m. to find new counsel. "No one will take this case on such short notice." I paused, then said the words that changed everything. "I want to represent her." He reminded me I was only a second-year law student, that I had never argued a case in court before, that I would be facing one of the best lawyers in the state. "I know," I said, my voice steady despite everything, "but she needs someone, and I can do this." There was a long silence before he finally spoke again. "You don't have a license to practice law." "I can under supervision. You know the student practice rules. If you supervise me, I can legally represent her." Another silence, then a quiet, disbelieving laugh. "You've lost your mind. Maybe, but this is her only chance." He exhaled slowly. "Where are you?" "3rd floor, outside courtroom 3B. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. The call ended. I stood there for a moment, gripping my mop like it was the only thing grounding me. Then I pushed open the closet door and walked toward the hallway bench. She was sitting there alone, making desperate calls one after another. Her voice trembled as she begged for legal help. Every call ended the same way, with rejection. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her suit wrinkled, her hands shaking. She was running out of time. I walked toward her slowly as another call ended in silence. Then I spoke. I can represent you. At that moment, the sound of a cane echoed down the hallway. Tap, dot, tap, dot, tap. Professor Jonathan had arrived, his snow-white hair neat, his worn suit crisp, an ebony cane in hand. He walked slowly but carried an authority that filled the entire hallway without effort. His old eyes were clouded, yet they burned with a sharp, unwavering intensity. I hurried to meet him at the stairwell, my steps quick, my mind already set. He stopped in front of me and went straight to the point without hesitation. Dan, do you understand exactly what you're about to take on here? I do, Professor. Gerald Vance is ruthless. He will not go easy on you because you're a student. I know. If you make even one mistake, your client will be the one who pays the price. I won't make a mistake. He raised an eyebrow slightly, studying me carefully for a moment. Everyone makes mistakes. I held his gaze steady without backing down even a fraction. Then I'll fix it. He burst out laughing, the sound echoing lightly in the hallway. There was pride in his expression, something he didn't bother to hide. Fine, I'll supervise you. But remember, this is your case, not mine. Understood. Then let's go. We don't have time to waste. We walked into the courtroom just as proceedings resumed, every second counting. Judge Goodwin sat on the bench, looking at Marion with visible concern. Miss Bogart, have you secured new counsel? She lifted her head slowly, her voice breaking under the pressure. No, Your Honor. I haven't been able to find anyone. I can represent her. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut cleanly through the entire courtroom. Every single person turned to look at me at the exact same moment. Judge Goodwin stared at me in disbelief, clearly recognizing who I was. At the plaintiff's table, Gerald Vance stood up instantly, furious. Your Honor, is this a joke? This man is a janitor. His voice echoed through the courtroom, sharp and mocking. He's been cleaning toilets in this building for 20 years. He didn't even finish high school and now he wants to argue a case? He stepped closer, his expression filled with open contempt. You're not qualified to touch legal files. You belong with a mop. This is a courtroom, not your janitor's closet. Get out. Laughter broke out from the plaintiff's table and whispers spread across the room. Mr. Vance, sit down, Judge Goodwin said sharply, striking the gavel. Your Honor, I said sit down. Gerald sat, but the smug look on his face never disappeared. The judge turned to Marion. Do you know this man? She hesitated for only a second before answering firmly. No, Your Honor. But if he's qualified, I want him to represent me. The judge looked back at me, his expression serious now. What is your name? Daniel Murray, Your Honor. I am a second-year law student. A law student? Yes, Your Honor. This is Professor Jonathan Olson. He is a licensed attorney and will supervise me under student practice rules. Jonathan stepped forward calmly, his voice steady and authoritative. I have practiced law in this state for 40 years with a clean record. I have reviewed Mr. Murray's preparation and I stand behind him. I will take full responsibility for supervising his representation. Judge Goodwin studied me for a moment, his skepticism obvious. Do you understand the stakes of this case? I do, Your Honor. Do you believe you are qualified? I am fully prepared. The court will decide if I'm qualified. A few quiet laughs echoed again, but the judge silenced them quickly. Very well. The trial will proceed. But you will be held to the same standard as any licensed attorney. I understand. Mr. Vance, call your next witness. Gerald stood, smiling like he had already won. The plaintiff calls Christian Hawkins to the stand. My stomach dropped immediately. This was deliberate. Christian walked to the stand confidently, perfectly composed. He smiled at the jury like he already owned their verdict. Gerald began with simple, carefully crafted questions. How long were you married to Miss Bogart? 10 years? What role did you play in her company? I supported her emotionally and socially in every possible way. He painted himself as a devoted husband, calm and sincere. Then Gerald shifted toward the prenuptial agreement. Did you understand what you were signing at the time? No. He lowered his gaze, voice filled with rehearsed pain. She forced me. I had no choice. So you signed under pressure, correct? Objection. I stood up instantly, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Leading question. Counsel is suggesting the answer. Judge Goodwin nodded slightly. Objection sustained. Rephrase. Gerald's expression hardened as he glared at me briefly. He wrapped up quickly and sat down, clearly irritated. Your witness. I stood, walked to the podium, and faced Christian directly. Every eye in the courtroom locked onto me in complete silence. Mr. Hawkins, you testified that you didn't have legal guidance, correct? That's correct. But there was a licensed attorney present during the signing, wasn't there? Yes, but he wasn't my attorney. Was he available to answer your questions? I suppose so. Did you ask him any questions? I don't recall. You don't recall? I held his gaze, my tone calm but pressing. A document affecting your entire financial future, and you asked nothing. Objection. Gerald snapped. Argumentative. Sustained. Ask questions only. I nodded and continued without pause. For 20 minutes, I asked only facts, nothing else. About his role in the company, he couldn't name a single contribution. About finances, he never invested a single dollar. About connections, he couldn't name one meaningful deal he created. About hidden assets, he had no real proof at all. His confidence faded with every answer he failed to give. The courtroom fell completely silent as the truth unfolded. The jury watched him now with clear doubt in their eyes. I have no further questions, Your Honor. I returned to my seat, my hands trembling slightly under the table. Marian leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. That was incredible. I shook my head slightly. This was only the beginning. The court recessed for 15 minutes as tension filled the hallway outside. I took the encrypted flash drive and approached the clerk quietly. Please give this to Judge Goodwin. She looked at me, confused and stunned. It contains recordings of bribery, fraud, and witness tampering, along with transcripts and a request for forensic verification. She froze, then quickly took it and rushed into chambers. I didn't need drama. I didn't need spectacle. I just needed the truth to be placed in the right hands. When court resumed, Gerald called his next witness. Sandra Kemp, Christian's former assistant. She testified calmly about hidden accounts and secret assets. As soon as Gerald finished, I stood up immediately. No hesitation, no build-up. My first question cut straight to the core. Ms. Kemp, during the 5 years you worked as Mr. Hawkins' assistant, who paid your salary? She froze for a moment, her eyes darting away before she answered. It was Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins had no personal income during the 10 years of his marriage. All of his expenses were paid through Miss Bogart's household account. So your salary ultimately came from Miss Bogart, correct? Her face went pale, her fingers twisting together as she struggled to respond. I suppose so. You testified that you saw offshore account statements belonging to Miss Bogart? Did you personally verify those documents with the issuing banks? Did you check the account holder information or confirm any transactions? The questions came one after another, leaving her no room to escape. No, I only saw files on Mr. Hawkins' computer. So you saw unverified images and swore under oath they were real evidence? You never confirmed whether those files were authentic, did you? She lowered her head completely, unable to answer any further. I have no further questions, Your Honor. She stepped down from the stand unsteadily, avoiding eye contact entirely. Gerald's face darkened as he called his final witness, Dr. Kenneth Marsh, a forensic accountant with decades of experience and a polished authoritative presence. He testified confidently about hidden offshore accounts and $200 million in assets. A murmur spread through the courtroom as his words landed. Marian leaned toward me, her voice shaking. That's not true. I don't have any of those accounts. I believe you, I said quietly. We'll prove it. When it was my turn, I didn't move to the podium. I stayed where I was and looked directly at Dr. Marsh. Dr. Marsh, you've practiced forensic accounting for 25 years, correct? That is correct. Then you're familiar with professional standards requiring independent verification? But you cannot rely solely on documents provided by a client? He hesitated before answering, yes. Did you independently verify the documents you presented to this court? Did you contact any banks or regulatory bodies to confirm them? His confidence disappeared instantly. That is not standard procedure. You only checked for image manipulation, not authenticity, correct? He didn't answer. Sweat began to form on his forehead. Ms. Bogart's company is publicly traded, correct? Yes. Meaning its financial statements are audited and publicly available? Yes. Did you find any evidence of hidden assets in those audited records? No. Did you find any unreported income in her tax filings? I did not review her tax returns. I turned to Marion, who immediately handed me a stack of documents. Your Honor, these are 10 years of audited tax returns. I request they be presented to the witness. Granted, I placed the documents in front of Dr. Marsh. Please review them. Do you see any hidden assets? He flipped through the pages, his hands shaking more with each second. Answer the question, yes or no. No. The courtroom fell completely silent. So your testimony is based entirely on unverified documents? Objection, Gerald shouted, rising abruptly. Sustained, the judge said coldly, but the damage was already done. I have no further questions, Your Honor. Gerald's entire case collapsed piece by piece after that moment. The plaintiff rested. I called Marion to the stand, followed by her lead accountant. She spoke calmly, clearly, explaining how she built everything from nothing. Her accountant laid out every asset, every number, every record. There were no gaps, no hidden accounts, no inconsistencies. Everything was clean. When closing arguments began, Gerald's voice lacked all confidence. He repeated the same claims, but they held no weight anymore. Then it was my turn. I stepped forward and looked directly at the jury. This is a simple case, I said calmly. A man lived off a woman's work for 10 years. Now he wants half of what he never helped build. He signed an agreement willingly with legal counsel present. He could have refused, but he didn't. The claims of hidden assets are unsupported and unverified. The so-called evidence has already been disproven in this courtroom. I paused briefly before continuing. The law does not exist to reward someone who contributes nothing. The facts are clear. The evidence is clear. Ms. Bogart followed the law. The plaintiff did not. The verdict you deliver today will decide whether truth still matters. Thank you. The jury deliberated until the next morning. The judge asked, "We have, in favor of the respondent, Marion Bogart. The prenuptial agreement is valid and enforceable. The plaintiff's claims are without factual basis." Marion gasped, tears streaming down her face as she gripped my hand. The judge delivered the final ruling with authority. Christian Hawkins is entitled only to the agreed $5 million. All other claims are denied. Additionally, the court finds evidence of fraud, bribery, and misconduct. The plaintiff must pay $1.2 million in legal costs. The gavel struck, sealing everything. Christian exploded in rage, kicking his chair before storming out. Gerald sat frozen, knowing his career was over. Adam Hart's future would collapse next. Their world ended not through noise or chaos, but through the rules they thought they could manipulate. Marion turned to me and hugged me tightly, sobbing, "Thank you. You saved me." Professor Jonathan placed a hand on my shoulder, pride in his eyes. "You were exceptional." "Thank you for believing in me," I replied quietly. "You earned that belief." 1 week later, I was back in the courthouse, mopping the same floors. My phone rang. "Hi, Dan. It's Marianne. I wanted to thank you again, and I want you to take this. The $500,000 retainer I was going to pay my former lawyer. It's yours, you earned it." Her tone was firm, leaving no room for argument. "Think of it as a scholarship. To keep you in school." She paused, her voice softening, but the resolve still unshakable. "And also, Dan, I want to make you an offer." "An offer? You've got 2 years left until you graduate, right? When you graduate, and when you pass the bar exam." The mop nearly slipped from my hand as the words hit me. I leaned back against the cold cinder block wall, unable to respond. I'm sorry. What did you just say? You have a gift, Dan. You proved that in the courtroom. I want you on my team. I'll just be a kid fresh out of law school. No experience, nothing. I can't imagine how good you'll be with a license and experience. I don't even know what to say. All you have to say is you'll think about it. I looked down the hallway toward the courtroom doors I'd wiped for years. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, spreading across the floor. I'll think about it. Good. And one more thing, Dan. You can keep mopping floors if you want. But you weren't meant to do it for the rest of your life. You're meant for something bigger. The line went dead. I stood there alone in the empty hallway, still holding the mop. In the building I cleaned for 20 years. The building where everyone believed I'd never be anything more. And for the first time, I believed something different. I was meant for more. 2 years later, I graduated from State University Law School in the top 10% of my class. I passed the bar exam on my first attempt. Marion kept her promise. I became general counsel of Bogart Couture. My office was in a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows. The entire city stretched out beneath me like something unreal. In the distance, I could see the Monroe County Courthouse. I stood there often, looking at that building. I thought about the 16-year-old kid who dropped out of school. I thought about the 20-year-old janitor with a mop in his hand. I thought about the law student who stood in that courtroom alone, the one who was laughed at and still fought. Of the stairs, of facing someone far more experienced, the most powerful things in this world aren't titles or expensive suits. They're rules, they're facts, they're the confidence built quietly over years no one sees. Years of watching, years of learning, years of waiting. The same lawyers who once ignored me would walk up and shake my hand. Judges who once said nothing would now invite me into chambers. I didn't change how I acted. Still quiet, still calm, still the same man. But now no one dared to underestimate me. This was my quiet victory. At the end of this story, I want to ask you something. Which moment hit you the hardest? Was it when I stood up and took the case in that courtroom? Was it when I broke Christian Hawkins on the stand? Was it when the verdict came down and we won? Or when Marion offered me the position as general counsel? Tell me in the comments. And if this story moved you, a story about refusing to accept your place, about breaking through judgment and proving your worth, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story.